How are you doing, Stuart? Let's start off by having you introduce yourself before we get into the beauty that is American-Canadian relations, as I think we've hit a high point in the history of our two nations and our brotherliness. And I wanted to talk about it and what Mark Carney is going to be doing going forward with their relationship with the United States, the announcement about the Canadian Conservatives. There's so much to get into. But first, who are you?
I am Stuart Benson, Left Hand Stu on most streams and basically all platforms. I'm a parliamentary press gallery reporter, so I'm one of the nerds with the recorders and the notebooks running around Parliament reporting on federal politics. So I work for the Hill Times. Yeah, that's me. If you have been on social media in the past 2 weeks, you may also know me as Tantrum Boy for my my little kerfuffle with.
Yeah, you were the guy that threw that tantrum.
Yes. I got into it with our version of, I guess you could say, maybe the Blaze.
Could we go over that, by the way? Because I was trying to look at, can I be honest? You guys' scandals are very Canadian. It's like our scandal, like when I see a journalist in America freak out, it's like, oh, they threatened to shoot somebody because they're evil, and then they freaked out or flipped out in the studio, threw 20 slurs around, right? That in a drunken stupor. That's a good, fun American media scandal, right?
This is really funny framing. I did crash out because they weren't following the rules.
That is very Canadian. That's very, very Canadian. You crashed out because they didn't follow the rules.
Yeah. No, it was because there was so we had our English and French language debates. The French was first, then English. And there's this organization called Rebel News, and they had sort of last 2 years had initially been denied accreditation to be a media.
Rebel News, was that Lauren Southern's outlet?
Yeah, I think Jack Posobiec may have worked there for a spell. If you recognize Ezra Levant, yeah, no, I think there was a couple of them that worked there. But yeah, so they're sort of our, I guess,
towers of independent media.
Yes, they are our independent citizen journalists, leaning slightly more conservative, shall we say?
Walter Cronkites.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Real shoe leather journalism. Yeah, so they tried to game the system this year because the last 2 years when they sued, they ended up winning, being like, you can't really deny them accreditation if they do go through the process, which I agree with. If they're going to follow the rules and they do it like everybody else, let them ask their question. If you think it's stupid, fine. I want to be able to ask a question that people think is stupid because that's my prerogative. But this year they're like, okay, so we're trying to accommodate as many outlets as possible. So only send the staff you need to do your reporting that night. So you might have more if you're a TV broadcast. I'm for a newspaper, so it was me and my photographer. That's all we needed. And they said for however many you're sending, one reporter gets accredited to ask all the questions. You'll get up in line, ask your question, follow up. If you want to ask another question, get back in line. So they this time sued.
Hey, by the way, I'm trying to look up your video, but looking up Tantrum Boy wasn't enough. Do you have a link or something?
Yeah, I can find it for you. You can almost just search up my full name, which was the strangest part. Was just because most people call me Stu, but just type how many people just were calling me Stuart Benson. My full name was very strange, but I can easily find that for you because they were. Oh, there it is. Also, with this one, they're oh no, that's just the photo. God damn it. They tried to compare me to the guy from.
Wait, one sec. Oh, I just found the perfect. I just found the perfect screen. I'm sorry. One second. I'm sorry, but please prepare to be both wrecked and owned, if you could.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 3.
Hopefully, my body is ready.
2, 1. Both wrecked and owned. 1 second. Let me just show this on screen. Hill Times reporter crashes out in debate. It looks like you're soaring out here. 1 second. Let me share screens with you so you can see it. I think it'd be easier than me. Yeah, that's easier. I mean, look, you just look so. This is a great look.
Oh yeah,
you.
Yeah, this is the one where they compared me to because that scene from Invasion of the Body Snatchers where he's like, And I'm like, you're just saying I look like.
Oh
a
my
movie
goodness,
star.
what am I?
That's
Give me
all
a
I'm
moment
doing.
here.
Yeah, whoa.
Sharing
I
screens.
think you shared the wrong. Screen.
Yeah, I shared the wrong screen. I hate technology. It makes me angry. Man, it's been a long ride over here. Don't blame me.
No worries.
Okay, I've been around the Polish all day, so.
Yeah, and your internet's not being very friendly to you, I see.
Is it not being friendly to me? Oh, well, at least Twitch doesn't like me very much.
No.
Why can I not? There we go. There we go. Now it should work. Fantastic.
There it is. Yeah.
But yeah, no, you look very soy here.
No, I'm fully crashing out on this one.
It was very crashy. Very crashy.
Yeah, because I'm like, yeah, this was. I had a moment of insanity where I thought I could reason with them and be like, you could ask a smarter question. I know you're.
What was the question that? So you were yelling at the rebel news people, was it?
Yeah, so this guy behind me was talking about he had done a story about some Facebook comments that one MP or one candidate had made when he was like 15 years ago. And I used the phrase in the thing because I didn't realize I was being filmed, and it's my instinct to just be like, okay, we're all journalists here. We can be adult, and I can just say the word that we're talking about, not dance around. But it's the F slur, but a tization or something, or ization, so you can fill in the blanks.
Okay, wait, did you call him the F slur?
No, because I was like, is that because he said that F slur, and they're like, oh, what word did he use? I'm like, you know what? I'm like, and then I said it because I'm a pedant, and I have like the Ron Burgundy thing where if I'm asked a question or I hear a question in my presence, my instinct is just to immediately answer it. So I said the word, and that's when he like lifts up his phone, basically to, and that's when I sort of like, oh, okay, I'm in this now. This is going to be a whole thing. So I start trying to, it gets like sort of, I'm raising my voice, and then I get chirped at from Ezra from across the room. And then when I turn over, there's like 6 of them all filming me. And it was not my most finest moment, but I think, or at least professionally, but I think I said, I feel good about what I said, like the words I used.
What do you have to say about Dean Skroyko, who says Stuart Benson is a gay prima donna?
Yeah, see, that was the funniest part, is it's like, if you think calling me a gay slur is going to have any effect on me, you're, I think, about maybe 10 or 20, 22 years late. I'm 32 years old. You know how long people have been calling, like before there was out gay kids at my high school, I was the one they were calling the F slur because I was the skinny one who did like drama and classics. Like you're not, unless you can come up with something I haven't heard, but then you're just being impressive at this point. So it was funny seeing them stutter to be like, he's a white straight dude. What do we call him? And they'd always fall back to insinuating I was gay, or I think a couple of times that I was trans, which was very funny. I'm like, if I'm trans, then it went real well, I think.
Yeah, that'd be I mean, I don't know. You give more lesbian vibes to me, honestly, than I would.
Yeah,
say, like,
no, I probably I'm like the most. I've gotten that before. I get along with the lesbians pretty well.
So the crux of
they resist it. They don't want to be. They're like instinctually. They're like, I shouldn't be friends with you, but I grow on them.
So the crux of it was that you asked them about or a slur that had been said.
Well, it was mostly because he was like, I'm going to demand each of the leaders of the federal parties condemn this man's comments from 15 years ago after we've just had the federal debate. And the night before, they had turned the like post debate press conference into kind of a circus by asking like 2-minute long questions, asking Mark Carney, like, how many genders are there? Like, that was there was no gender war or like gender issues discussed in the debate, but that was the question they felt was most pertinent in that moment. So I think I kind of was like, I think I can maybe convince him that he can think of a better question that's more productive.
So you were just like, think of a better question, and
I was trying to explain like why
I thought it when they asked you what the word was, and that was it.
Well, yeah, because I was like, the question, I'm like, and you know that the way you framed this story.
I love your hand gestures, by the way.
Yeah, I was just gesticulate. I'm Kermit the Frog when I get I have like the arm movements of Kermit and the voice of Shorzy, as we've discovered.
It's very expressive. No wonder you
Mhm.
were able to garner so much of their attention.
Yeah, no, they had fun with me for about a while, and then there was like some old guy who gave like the double birds to one of their camera people, and then he became the main character, and they sort of just got bored with me.
Got you. Why do you think
Mhm.
there's such limp-wristed pussies?
Well, this is what they're like. They make so much money,
And
off
I'm
of
saying
it.
that while
Just
you look like this, by the way. So I mean, I mean it.
yeah. Well, I was super lip-wristed, but I was being real. I was being a real limp-wristed courage cowardly
Because
dog.
honestly,
I didn't
what
know
you asked
that.
them is what I wish I could have always asked them. Like when I watch these recent like press conferences where they're
Mhm.
like the ones in America, it's getting so bad. I don't know if you're watching the press conferences over here, man. It's North Korea style, man. It's like, why is the president so good, Mr. Mrs. Press Secretary? Are we going to arrest Hillary Rodham Clinton, Miss Press Secretary? And what?
The Tim Pool one, I
so
would have
bad.
lost it. You think I crashed out in there? If I had been a White House press gallery reporter and I had been like, and the first question is going to go to Tim Pool, I would have crashed out so good. I would have been tackled by Secret Service so fast. Yeah, because who's the most recent guy? Isn't that the guy who like got banned and then unbanned because he shared like CSAM that was like allegedly so bad that
Dom,
the FBI thought it was a myth.
He is the worst. The thing that sucks the most about this is these people are so irresponsible. They're so bad. They're so gross. They're so degenerate. Dom Lucario or whatever his name is, not only does he lie about everything, this is the dude that's like, he is worse than Alex Jones. I mean that. He's worse than Alex Jones. He's like entertaining like the frazzled drip that Hillary Rodham Clinton is like sucking the adrenochrome out of children and torturing them with like her former staffers and like pizza ping pong and like completely off the deep end. But then goes out and posts CP up on Twitter to 3.1 million people, but not just CP torture porn. Like this is a child getting brutalized and murdered. And some might say, well, he's just trying to bring it to that's not helping anyone. It's not like, we need to find who this kid is. Nobody knows. And even if you do, you don't repost it like I always try to wonder, like, hey, when I take a picture,
that's as close to the frazzle drip video as like in reality you could get, and he posted it to his Twitter.
Not only did he post it, he put his logo on it. He was like, how do you put your logo on a video like that?
Because that means because it's not just like he found it and shit. Like he ran it through a video processor. Like, and
how do you put your logo on a kid getting violated in that manner? And like, I want my brand to be associated with this image.
Because just in the moments when
I'm only surprised they didn't make it like a DVD, like go bouncing around so nobody could edit it out, just to be extra sure that everyone knew. Oh my God.
It's because you'd think any normal person in those few seconds when they've opened up the video editing software and gone open this file, in those couple of seconds where it's buffering or uploading you go, what am I doing? And you just stop. But he doesn't. He's like, no, that I need to get my Twitter metrics.
It also worries me because of it also indicates that there's people that are that saw that and was like, I need to come back for more from this person. This is informing me about the public. But how do you grab that person and say he should be asking the president questions? This other person who called for like civil war on the internet should be asking the president questions. This other Tim Pool, who's taking Russian propaganda money, should be asked the president questions. But the Associated Press shouldn't, because they refuse to refer to the Gulf of America as the Gulf of America instead of the Gulf of Mexico.
And what's scary about it is like almost I don't actually believe that they were like, yeah, let's have the guy who posted the real life Frazzle Drip video ask a question. I don't think they know. I don't think they did that sort of due diligence. And it's more terrifying. They'll just let anybody in there with no background checks, no cursory Google search.
This presidency,
because they're willing to blow smoke up Trump's ass.
This presidency really is an example of like the inmates running the asylum. By God, like Laura Loomer being involved in the decision-making process of who does and does not stay in the defense like she's recommending people to fire, and the government is firing those people. Mike Waltz was on the list of people to fire provided by Laura Loomer to the government, saying like these are the people who do not show sufficient loyalty to the president. Mind you, Mike Waltz would go on TV when no one else would to defend Donald Trump at the lowest of his lows as a Green Beret, saying what he said about the troops. You know, I'll defend Donald Trump. Like 4 Bronze Stars. He's like laying that on the floor to say I'll defend him. That's not loyal enough to Laura Loomer. She's making decisions about who stays and goes. Like you just get close. If you show yourself to be enough of a sycophant, you can get the power, and you don't even need to know anything. Like Kash Patel, you think he knows anything about the FBI or his secondary appointment to the ATF?
Or and how many jobs does Rubio have right now? Like
4.
Sure. Yeah, like
he's the head archivist. There's another one I forget. Now he's Secretary of State and National Security Advisor. And I'm sorry, okay, I know people like in IR and in like people have a hard on for Henry Kissinger as the great mind of the era. So he balanced both National Security Advisor, Secretary of State. This isn't the 70s anymore. Number one, Henry Kissinger didn't do a particularly good job at that. By the way, I think he was actually did a shit job at that. But when you're National Security Advisor, you're taking all of the intelligence and you're processing it, you're running it through, you're trying to figure out what's important, what's not important to provide to the president. You're supposed to analyze all that. When you're Secretary of State, you're the chief diplomat. That's your job. These are 2 actually separate roles. That's not to say they don't have any in-runs. You take intelligence, you provide it to an ally, Five Eyes, you know, it has overlap. But to expect Marco Rubio in this age with so many information streams to be both the National Security Advisor and the Secretary of State on top of 2 other jobs, and this is not temporary. By the way,
not even about
I don't know if you heard
the
this.
2 jobs. No one should.
This morning it was announced. This is not a 1-day thing, a 2-day thing. He's going to have the job for at least 6 months. And they've already said that other people should stop competing for the position of National Security Advisor. And this is a time of untold international turmoil to be putting this much pressure on little Marco. Okay, it's the little Marco that could, man, chugga choo choo. He's got a lot of work on his plate.
You almost have to start rooting for him just for the good of
I have to.
the planet.
You have to root for little Marco. The whole world is in his hands. You know, the whole world's in his hands, man. God damn.
It's not like because like no one has the bandwidth mentally to do that, to do those 2 jobs. No one should be responsible for that much or have to consume that much information.
Part of the reason why everybody hates Henry Kissinger. He shouldn't. If you give somebody that much power, it just corrupts them. And he was also
anyone who
a demon.
you're like
secondary.
Don't give them power because it's like their brains work differently. And
anybody who wants both those jobs should not have either.
And that's what my thing is. Like, is this like Rubio wants to be Kissinger, or is it like nobody else, like they can't find anybody else, so it's like, well, Rubio's literally the most competent guy we have, so give him the jobs that cannot be fucked up.
It might be that, because let's think about the other people who, and I'm sorry we're diverting so far away from Canada.
No worries.
But I think about this quite a lot because, you know, I grew up in the Washington, D.C. area. You know, both my grandparents who raised me were feds, right? So I get the stream through my ears of what's going on. Like the vast majority of layoffs are hitting like literally my county, right? So it's I'm hearing a lot of this. Tulsi Gabbard can't do the job. Okay, it's not gonna fall on Steve Witkoff, who has been given every role in the world because he hasn't even done the jobs he's been given particularly well, which is be a Russian nesting doll. Apparently, who JD Vance, he has 2 years of experience in the Senate. He openly said he doesn't care about Ukraine. He has no clue what he's doing diplomatically. You can't give something like this to him. And it's also, it'd be weird if he was both like vice president, and that's not something that's ever happened. It would be a weird move. So I mean, like, I guess they just think that Marco Rubio makes the most sense. But to be clear, National Security Advisor is not a position that you need a Senate confirmation for. This, you could just appoint somebody and they serve at the discretion of the president. So Donald Trump could choose to put this burden on somebody else and has chosen to put it on Marco Rubio.
I can't, that there, the more I think about it, the more I feel like it might be a little bit of column A, column B, where it's like, how much is it Trump is like, this is my idea, and how much is it like they've convinced him that's his idea? Because it's like, God, it's so scary.
All I have to help, look, the first term, Trump, I like to refer to it, certain eras of it as like the Kushner junta. I think we might have discussed this before. What I'm hoping for is we get the little Marco deep state. That's my desire, is that for the next 3 years, or at least the next 6 months during this very crucial period when it comes to Ukraine and a lot of shit, that we just get a little Marco deep state while Trump plays golf all day and just plays spin the bottle on the tariff rate.
Yeah. And for all we know, it's like Rubio's gone out and there's like dudes who are doing all this, and it's just he's just formally has all these titles, which is probably not what's happening. But hopefully it's just as because how much is Trump actually involved in any of the day-to-day stuff, really? Like the actual nuts and bolts, West Wing walk and talk, sort of sign it, other than the ceremonial stuff. I don't know how much he's getting sort of briefed in, or they're having important conversations to get.
Well, don't worry,
approval.
Tulsi Gabbard is in charge of intelligence briefings, so I'm sure he's getting everything he needs. Tulsi Gabbard's the top intelligence official in the country.
Yes, and just. Do you think they have you seen Thunderbolts?
No, I have not.
Because it's have you seen what Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character looks like in that?
I have not.
Okay, because she's the head of the CIA, and she has just one big streak of gray hair in it. The whole time I'm watching, I'm like, is this on purpose, or am I seeing things that no one else even on the movie thought of? Because it's wild. Because it's all about a CIA, I don't want to spoil it, but yeah, it's in the movie where she's not the greatest person, and she's the head of the CIA.
Wait, the head of the CIA isn't portrayed particularly favorably? No.
It's a real turn.
Wow.
Actually, for Marvel,
how the CIA has fallen.
Mm-hmm. They really got a PR problem.
I think they they've really they need to do a few more pamphlet handouts on campus. So I wanted to get into the Canadian elections with you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I wanted to talk about when you guys all filled in your maple leaf and thrown it in the ballot box. You guys decided to give the Liberals the longest period of one-party rule in 60 years. Am I correct in saying that?
So. I think so. I think they might they're up there as one of, just on scoreboard election wins and time in office, probably one of the most successful political parties in the Western world, or in Western democracies, in just terms of how many elections it's won and stuff. But yeah, we've had a couple of seats also flip back and forth. So I think it's currently sits at 169 nice democratically. For the Liberals, 144 for the Conservatives. NDP, I think, have 7. They dropped from 26. They're in the 20s, and now they have 7 seats. They're not even technically an official party, which means they lose out on a bunch of resources unless they can figure out a way to make an agreement for it. Greens lost they got cut by 50%, so they went from 2 to 1. It's just Elizabeth May. They tried to do like a co-leader sort of thing, and the co-leader didn't win his seat, so he's out. Polyev didn't win his seat. Literally,
I wanted to talk to you about. To be clear, chat, Pierre Polyev, outside of being a really funny name to say over and over, is the leader of the Conservative Party in Canada. And before a few months ago, he was fully expected to be the next Prime Minister of Canada. It was really just a question of watching the Liberals' death march into their electoral grave and seeing how many seats they could maintain to be a somewhat relevant opposition. And due to the land down under, and as in the land below you, in this case, America, and Donald Trump deciding to soiree up there and make very reasonable demands of annexation and saying he's very serious about it over and over and over. And while Americans laugh at it, Canadians didn't. And it made them go from like down 25 points, down like horrific amounts, to winning an election that was a gigantic upset victory, like unprecedented upset victory.
It's like it was, because I've heard so many conservatives say, well, we stopped them from getting the majority they were projected to win. I'm like, yeah, they were projected to win that 2 weeks before the election, which was massive. Like, there are some polls in December that had the Conservatives up by an average of like 30 points over the Liberals. There were questions of, like, go to 338 Canada and you can sort of go back and look at where they were, and it'll show you like when Trudeau resigned. And like in December, after like I think it was like Black Monday, when Freeland resigned and left them hanging on the sort of winter budget update, and then Trudeau resigns January 5th, and then along comes Carney and sort of just,
oh my god, I'm sorry,
just hits them with the.
I can't not look at this.
It's nuts.
How?
There's never it's
How?
insane.
Wow.
And it's like, okay, so, and literally you can go, and I think this is, if you go to that, like, that's almost probably near January. That's when Trump gets inaugurated, probably January 6th. Like, I think Trudeau resigned like the day before Trump got inaugurated. Trump gets in office, and then he starts making threats. I remember like that I think it was February 4th was like that first deadline. Everyone in Canada was just on their phone, just refresh, looking to see what's so. And then the Conservatives had spent the past 2 years trying to frame the election around anti-carbon tax and anti-Trudeau. And
Mark Carney got rid of the carbon tax, and Justin
literally
Trudeau
the first
is
thing he did. Yeah, so they had nothing, and then for maybe the first 2 weeks of the election, the Conservatives still tried to campaign on anti-Trudeau, anti-carbon tax sentiment, and it's like, I think you probably saw it, and it got memed a bunch from the English debate, where Carney was like, he's not here anymore. Trudeau's gone. I'm not him. He's not calling. Like, you saw the Conservatives sort of figure it out near the end, but I think it was just sort of too late. They let it linger for too long, and they just couldn't. So they were right that they were able to salvage
kind of like
it.
Flashes of Trump talking about Biden during the debate a little bit.
Yeah, Trump just jumping in and making sort of, and like always pushing back the date or bringing in some new terms, and then
Hillary
literally
Clinton getting thrown out there randomly, just.
Yeah, the morning of the election, as Canadians, like right before the polls open, one more Trumpiest ex machina on social media, he comes in and, like, reading between the lines, endorses himself for the Canadian election. And so you could, and like it hit the Conservatives hard, where they lost a bunch of seats that they probably would have won even if the election had happened in like November. The NDP, as you can see, absolutely cratered too. And you saw a little bit of a reinvigoration of the bloc, but not a lot, it just became a two-party race with Carney as the front runner. And here we are. And so I guess for your you guys have like your electoral districts or whatever.
Yeah.
For I guess it's the Senate. So imagine if the way you elected your president is if you had whoever the candidate, instead of having a candidate after a primary, whoever the leader of the Republicans or the Democrats in the Senate if after an election they have the plurality of the senators in the Senate, the leader of the Senate of that party in the Senate becomes well, I guess it would be the House of Representatives, sorry for you guys, not the Senate. But leader of the Democrats, if they won the plurality of the seats in the House, the leader of that party would then become president. Problem is, the leader of that party also has to win their sort of district. And Polyev did not. There was a bit of redistributing, but it's just it's those are supposed to be safe. That doesn't happen very often. And it was by quite a bit too. I think it was like 4 a.m. when sort of most channels were ready to call it. And even as it was happening, I couldn't.
I think the only way to compare this would be, let's say Ron DeSantis, Ron DeSantis wouldn't be a good pick. Let's say you got Ted Cruz as the Republican nominee for president, and then in the same election, where I know it wouldn't work, like if he's running for president, he can't also run for Senate at the same time, but saying he could, he'd lose his presidential race, and then also his own district then votes him out to replace him with Beto O'Rourke, or somebody who didn't say ban AR-15s in Texas because they're not an idiot, something like that.
But also, it's also kind of like governor, because he's no longer in the House, he's no longer technically the leader of the opposition in the House of Commons, which means he doesn't legally technically have the right to live in Stornoway, which is the mansion for the leader of the opposition. So that's been
the leader of the opposition gets a mansion?
Yeah, he gets a mansion. It's called Stornoway. It has its own name.
Why?
You can Google it. Because British.
You guys are that nice that even the losers get a White House?
Well, the funny part is that as of right now, the leader of the opposition, his house is, well, technically they're not the losers. They came in second.
Okay, but they're the losers though.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
oh, sorry. Look at this. Look at the data I have on screen. Square in the eye and tell me they're not the losers.
Yes. You look at that orange number, and now that they can't even pay their staffers in the House of Commons anymore, the way they used to. That's
really?
But yeah, there's a couple of losers, I would say. I think is so, in a parliamentary system.
Let's go to this, because you just talked about the fact that Polyev lost, but he's not done, because people were talking about, okay, so now the Polyev's lost, and they're going to get a new leader, because it's being the leader of the opposition while not having a seat, while it's not impossible, is very untraditional. It probably looked pretty weird.
You'd have to watch Question Period from outside on like a live feed.
Yeah, he would have to like live stream himself off a bench as people like walking by or something. Apparently, he's not done. He's gonna now run for a different seat. I have the message. I pulled it up on screen. I'm gonna read it. Sorry, I have it. It's very tiny text, so I'm not sharing it. But you've already read the message, so I don't think you care. MP-elect Damian Kirkic is his name. Kirkic announces intention to resign to allow Conservative Party leader to run in Battle River, Crowford. Damian Kirkic, Conservative MP, elect for Battle River, released the following statement on his decision to resign his seat to allow Conservative Party of Canada leader Pierre Poilievre to run in a forthcoming by-election. It has been a tremendous honor to serve the good people of Battle River, Crawford as their member of parliament since 2019. Their support and commitment to the Conservative movement and our mission to bring hope and prosperity to this country has been unmatched, which is why, after much discussion with my wife Danielle, and I have decided to step aside from the parliamentary session to allow a Conservative Party leader to run here in a by-election. Pierre Poilievre just finished a remarkable national campaign that received the highest vote share since 1980, but he didn't receive the high. What? Okay. An unstoppable movement has grown. You know what this reminds me? This is even more pathetic than Trump's like, I've gotten the most votes of a sitting president ever in the 2020 election. Oh, but of not the most votes, period, because that would be, Anyway, an unstoppable movement has grown under his leadership. Well, what do you mean unstoppable? It was stopped. You can't call it unstoppable right after it was stopped. Come on, that's like 1946. Who shall stop these? Come on, it's over. It's stopped. It's been done. It's like, oh, you can't kill a symbol. You can't kill change. He's the conservative Che Guevara, man. And I know we need Pierre's fighting in the House of Commons to hold the Liberal minority government to account. Yeah, so you can keep talking about Trudeau. This is what best for Canada and what's best for the his
Battle
district.
River Crowfoot.
His beautiful district. So oh, I accidentally showed our DMs and all of our horrible messages. Okay. So
yeah, so
is this being received as sad as I'm receiving it?
Yeah. So it's like it is kind of, I don't know how this, because it does kind of feel a little bit like lame, because this riding specifically, Damian Kurek won 83% of the vote in 2025. He won by, like, it was a 70 point margin between himself and the NDP. The Liberals came in third in that riding. So this is, I think, like the third safest conservative seat in the entire country. It's a super rural, right outside of Red Deer, Alberta. I think the riding contains the hometown of Chad Kroeger from Nickelback. Just, I don't know if that helps with the geography, but just to throw that out there. But it's he's gonna go there. And Carney has the ability to, he can either delay 11, I think it's like 11 days or something, or like 2-digit days between when the MP resigns, or 180 days, so like 6 months almost. And he's already said he's going to just allow, if that's what they want to do, I'll let it happen, which kind of is, I feel like he's like, oh, that the way I heard it was like, that's what they want to do. Fine, I'll let it happen. It doesn't it's not the most like projecting strength. I need one of my young up and coming MPs to fall on his sword so I can slip into this really safe riding where they're going to vote for me no matter what. As long, like, if I took my morning constitution, painted it blue, and put it on the ballot, it would get more votes than the Liberal in that like riding. It's super safe, and it's just better than not having him in Parliament, I guess. Got to do it fast to try and get him in there before.
I mean, is it that important about? Do they really feel that without him they'd be leaderless? That they couldn't choose a new leader or somebody who had the confidence of his district?
Well, so like they are like okay. So with what Kurek said in that message, in light of them losing, yes, it does sound very lame. It does sound very copy, but if you ignore that very small, minor detail, he's kind of right. Like the sort of the Poilievre change sort of movement that he's built up. So in the first they just put out fundraising numbers in the first 3 months, and this will sound quaint to you Americans, but in the first 3 months of 2025, the Conservatives brought in $28 million. $28 million compared to the Liberals' 13. Now, in comparison, last year was like, so every year since Poilievre has been elected, so 2023, historic, like $38 million in a full year in fundraising. In 2025, even bigger, $41 million. And now in the first 3 months, and only includes the first 3 days or 7 days of the election, $28 million. When you're a party bringing in that much money, and if you don't know, the maximum you can donate to a party or candidate in a year as an individual is $1,750. It's the maximum. So they with that they brought in $30 million or $28 million in 3 months. It's works out to about $300,000.
There's no thing like super PACs, or there's none of.
There's like third-party advertisers, which is kind of the same, but they can only spend about $600,000. And
those are not those included in these fundraising numbers?
No, that's not included in that. So you could like Rebel News or For Canada, which are both registered by Ezra Levant. Those are third-party advertisers. They do have to register how much money they've spent and how they're sort of using it, but it's not how much you can't, and then how much money they've brought in. But like it's not included in their $28 million in fundraising. So when your party's bringing in that much money, you're doing these rallies. It's the party does, like it used to be in any other election. The Conservatives' result on its own in any other election, Conservative majority, they would have won. But just because the Bloc, the NDP all cratered and everything sort of coalesced around Carney, it became a two-party race. and 44% or whatever of the vote they got was just not enough anymore.
So I want to figure out how, before we move on to Mark Carney and the future of the country, because I mean, you can only talk about the losers so much. Is there a certain amount of reflection where, okay, we made XYZ mistake because once Trump did, said this, we should have been more anti-Trump. We should have gone out and said, we're like Canada first, as in, over America. We must fight for our interests and we must fight for our timber to be exported. Or is there less reflection? And they view this more like a meteor hitting and like, come on, you can't blame us for this, can you? We'll just do it again next time and we'll get it. Or
well, I think there's a little bit of because you did see during the election that like they started to pivot and it took them a while to sort of calibrate how strong and what language they were going to use to push back against Trump, because some of the things Trump was saying, for different reasons and for different motives, they kind of agreed. They did think there was issues at the border, and there are. They did think there was there was drug problems in Canada, because there are. They did think there was crime issues in Canada, because there are. But they had to figure out a way to make the points that they wanted to make without sounding like Trump, and it took them a little bit to figure out how to do that. And I think by that time they had just lost so much of a lead. And now the other thing you're starting to see is before the election, you only basically heard from Poilievre and maybe one of his deputies every once in a while. But since then, you've seen a lot of his other conservative MPs and backbenchers and stuff being allowed to go on the CBC, the dreaded CBC that they were threatening to defund as soon as they took office. But now they can go on CBC. And
CBC is Canadian Public Broadcasting.
Yeah, the Canadian, it's the Canadian version of the BBC, and they had put an entire it was sort of CBDS for it. You couldn't go on CBC. There was we have a 5 p.m. sort of flagship show that the host was basically would make sort of comments at the end. It's if we've reached out to every conservative, and if any of them ever wants to come on, seats here for you, and they just were not allowed to go on. And now they can sort of, I think there has been contrition. They don't actually believe that it's just a meteor. They do believe that there was they were getting at the door, people hearing, we like your ideas, we think Poilievre's kind of a dick, as the Globe and Mail's bureau chief said on national news yesterday. But yeah, they were there's definitely going to be some calibrating, some soul searching, and maybe a change of attitude. But again, it's not always. The Liberals aren't always going to have Trump.
Yeah, here's my question. Before we move on to Mark, because I just thought about this too. The Liberals also, I feel might even be in a worse position when it comes to the next election with this, because I could imagine there being a little bit patting themselves on the back, oh my God, we did it, look at us, we're such political masterminds, when Donald Trump kind of came up and served them the victory on a silver platter. I'm not going to say that there wasn't any effort. I'm not going to say that Justin Trudeau resigning certainly didn't help, and Mark Carney, I'm not going to say that, but what I am saying is it wouldn't be hard for me to imagine somebody getting really full of themselves after a turnaround like this and then not making the necessary changes to stop a result where if Donald Trump didn't get elected and Harris got elected, there would have probably been a much different outcome. And in that race, I think there would have been more soul searching, where in this race with Donald Trump, there's probably going to be a lot less.
I think for sure. I think so. But also on the flip side of that, in the next election, the Conservatives still won't have anti-carbon tax. People won't be pissed off about Trudeau. There probably whatever effects we're still dealing with from inflation, from the goddamn war in Ukraine, the pandemic, all that stuff. Will be maybe slightly less painful by then. So there will be a lot of things that the Conservatives won't have as well. And here's the thing: if Carney is competent, and when I was at the press conference today, and a lot of the stuff he was announcing, I'm like, is this the Liberal guy? We're gonna one of his announcements was that they're gonna tie foreign workers and foreign students, temporary foreign workers and foreign student numbers to 5% of the population. And I'm trying to I'm like, is that 5% of the the student population, 5% of our working population, and is that total? But I mean, a year ago, hearing that from the liberals, or someone suggest that to the liberals would have been a mind to call you racist and xenophobic. And just the way he's like, we're going to massively revolutionize the economy like never seen before World War II. If he can do some of this stuff, and he does know his stuff on the economy, the conservatives might not have that good of a leg to stand on. And the other part is a lot of Poilievre's sort of his ability was from the fact that he was undefeated. Like he had never been beaten. He had rose to the leadership on historic numbers. All of this stuff is coalescing behind him. And now prophecy has failed. King Arthur's sword lies shattered on the ground. His castle sacked.
The chosen one has fallen.
Yeah, the pretender Fanjoy sits in Carleton. So it's it'll be weird to see him, because everyone says, oh, there'll have to be some humility. Like he's like when Poilievre accepted the guy said with humility, and I'm just like trying to imagine Poilievre coming back humbled is like, if that is real, if he is humbled, I'm very interested to see what a humbled Poilievre looks like.
Well, I wanted to move on from this and make sure we have some time to talk about the actual results of Mark Carney now being the prime minister in relation to our country's beautiful relationship. Did you watch Mark Carney's, before we see his recent statement about his phone call with Donald Trump, I imagine you watched his victory speech and you heard what he said about Canada's relationship with the United States. Can you remind people who might have not heard what he said?
Is this because there's a couple, because there was sort of I think there was the repetition of the sort of, if America is not willing to lead, Canada's ready to step up. There was the one, I think the one about, because this was, I think, at like 2 a.m. So if there's you might have to remind me.
Sure. So him saying that the relationship with the United States, based off cooperation, the friendly relationship they had, is gone. That era is done. It's not great, but this is the reality of what we live in, and we need to face it with gritted teeth. And Canadians might have to make sacrifices in relation to standing up to the United States for Canada's national interest. He's talking about the United States not as a friend or an ally or a nation that fought wars together multiple times and, is very close culturally and politically and economically, but as like a adversary.
Yeah, because the thing I'm reminded of is it's sort of like, so there's the Trudeau Senior when he was visiting, I think it was
on Tuesday.
Sorry. Oh, but he was visiting. Yeah, no, he was visiting Nixon, and his line was, "Living next to you is in some ways like sleeping next to an elephant. No matter how friendly and even tempered is the beast, if I couldn't call it that, one is affected by every twitch and grunt." And Trump that elephant is fully awake, it's pissed off, and it's ready to crush us. And I think that's sort of like the message that the liberals have been trying to send, that like this is gonna get tough, and we might have to brace ourselves for a little bit of pain, but it's important to sort of keep them on their side of the line. Though the tone was a little bit different at the press conference today, because he's announcing that they are confirming, I think it's Tuesday, that Carney will be traveling to Washington to meet with Donald Trump. Sort of like, I think there was also when he gave a world exclusive interview to the BBC as polls were closing. We're all real butthurt about that in Ottawa because he hadn't given an interview to any Canadian outlets. But he said it like, this meeting will be on our terms when there's mutual respect. So when this first broke, I'm like, so how is this on our terms? It's gonna be strange. So I don't know how much of that kind of language was election bluster and how much.
What if when he goes to Washington, Trump does what the Saudis did with the Jordanian leader, and they just like kidnap him? It's like, well, Mark Carney has announced to me in private that Canada is now the 51st state. Woohoo!
Well, Carney's probably got like a dead man switch where if anything happens to him, Canada, Japan, France, and the UK, and anyone else he's spoken to just immediately starts selling off American foreign-owned debt.
He calls it
You heard that?
yeah, they call it the bank bomb. He's got a dead man switch around his neck. Yeah.
Yes. You heard that rumors? That was sort of like his reasoning for why his first official trips were to France and UK, like the day after he became leader and prime minister officially, was go to UK and France. And then I think he had a nice long call with Japan. People were pointing out that after that, he spoke with, or Trump called him Prime Minister Carney rather than he had been calling him
Governor Trudeau
previously. Yeah. And everyone noticed a real quick tone change. So the rumor or conspiracy theory was that Carney was going around and be like, if we all just start selling this stuff off.
Hey, it was when the 10-year
American dollar.
It was the 10-year bonds ticking up a bit that made Trump say that the economy got yippy and made him start backing off. So.
Oh yeah, was it the bond or was it the debt, or would have been like selling the debt would have caused the bonds to go up? One of
by the bonds going up, the debt becomes harder to service.
Oh, okay. Yes. Okay. Yes. So yeah, it was, and they were just trying to. So that was sort of the rumor. So I've kind of made this joke before, where it's almost like Carney's like a bizarro liberal response to Trump. Where let me just describe someone. Successful businessman. He's gonna heroically leave all that behind to come and fix the economy and start defending us against these foreign adversaries who are trying to take over and control our country. Am I talking about Carney, or am I talking about how the Republicans talk about Trump
first?
Yeah. Well, I mean, yes. The conservatives tried to do that, and that didn't go. But I think the liberals, their slogan was Canada Strong, which I was like, feels, and it was their colors all red. So, as my American politics poison brain was like, this is a Republican. But it's the change and the shift from sort of because it's 2015. Sort of liberal, progressive, if you want to say identity politics, more focused than the average liberal party, to Carney's more sort of very economically focused. I know what the debt is. I think about it a lot. Sort of stuff has been wild to see.
Do you think when Mark Carney meets Donald Trump in Washington, he should introduce? He says, "My name is Mark Carney. He, him, with Donald Trump. They, them." And just, shoot from the hip.
I think, I mean, if he brings his wife and introduces her as because I think she's like an actual lady, as in like a lord and like British aristocracy. So I think that would probably play. I think Carney's just if he approaches him, I think the same way Trump has interacted with any rich businessman in his life. And as if this is someone who can give me something. I think Carney might do well.
So he shouldn't go.
I don't think it's going to be a Zelensky.
You're going to be the 14th province. That shouldn't be.
No, he's not. I don't think Carney's going to go in there trying to provoke anything. I think he's going to go in there. He's going to go in there, Bank of Canada governor, like real, just math guy, the accountant.
Do you want to watch this statement, this press conference? We have some clips from it from CNN, so we can hear the tone shift. Because again, I remember watching election night. It was basically, it felt like a breakup song release, like somebody talking about losing a loved one almost.
Well, there was one line from one of their ads that was called "We've gotten over the pain of the betrayal, but we'll never forget the lessons," or something like that.
Yeah, that was something he said at the victory speech too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that was the one I was thinking of, because it was that's the one that was real evocative, because it's it's we've forgiven, but we'll never forget. That's breakup shit.
Yeah, it's the type of stuff where you start controlling for externalities that you didn't before. For example, a good example of how Trump's had this effect is by restricting certain weapons from being sent to Ukraine, or floating the ideas of maybe we're going to restrict you from doing X, Y, and Z with American weapons. That leads to people thinking, well, should I buy these weapons? Should America be our main provider of these weapons? Because if we can't even re-export them to help with our own national defense priorities, then is it worth it spending these gigantic contracts in the American defense industry? And it creates a certain amount of unpredictability and unreliability that when talking about national security issues, nation states just can't afford.
Yeah, and it's wild because he does he thinks that they're being ripped off when all was for you, Damien. You had everything. You just had to let the American empire cook. But you and your ego, you had to blow it all up. Like I don't know. It feels like he fundamentally doesn't understand it. And then I flip and go, or does he know what he's doing? He's just like, it's a very stupid thing he's trying to do.
You know, sometimes it's hard. I think it's a bit of column A and column B. I think, for example, like when I hear him talk about like the fair share that Ukraine needs to pay from the debt, and he says $350 billion, says all this, I don't need to believe that he actually believes that we sent them $350 billion. We didn't. We sent them like less than a third of that. And of course, a decent amount of aid was invested in our own defense industry anyway, like building, expanding production here. I think, though, that there is still a use to making people believe that so you can justify the pressure you put on some nation to try to strong arm more concessions out of them. Like, was it that Trump was stupid when he said that, hey, who negotiated this bad deal in reference to who's the idiot who did this, in reference to the deal he negotiated with the Canadians? Was that stupid? Probably, but was there also an intention there to just call the deal bad so we can continuously, every time we revisit it, bleed out a little bit more and more and more until you're bleeding a stone? There could be, another incentive there.
Yeah, and that's his thing. It's like attack. Even if it's like it makes you look like a hypocrite, or you're attacking something that you previously said is like, I don't know, but he just, as long as if he sees a vulnerability, even if it's going to expose his vulnerability or his hypocrisy, he's going to attack it. And because he knows that rather than having to defend, he's just going to keep on like a goddamn piranha, just biting at something new, even if you have to like pretend, like make up a target out of thin air.
Okay, let me play a little bit of this clip for us.
Let's do it.
On Tuesday, I had a very constructive call with President Trump, and we agreed to meet next Tuesday in Washington. Our focus will be on both immediate trade pressures and the broader future economic and security relationship between our two sovereign nations. My government will fight to get the best deal for Canada. We will take all the time necessary, but not more, in order to do so. In parallel, we will strengthen our relationships with reliable trading partners and allies. Canada has what the world needs, and we uphold the values the world respects.
What specifically do you want to get out of your first in-person meeting with President Trump, and will you be focused on trying to get the tariffs lifted?
Thank you for the question. For the first meeting, as I mentioned in my remarks, and the President and I discussed when we had our constructive call, there are two sets of issues. There are the immediate tariffs, both sectoral and so-called reciprocal and fentanyl tariffs, and then there is the broader relationship. So addressing both sets of issues. We'll see how that progress goes. It's important to get engaged immediately, which has always been my intention, has always been his intention, and I'm pleased to have the opportunity for quite a comprehensive set of meetings that will take place on Tuesday.
How do you avoid an Oval Office ambush like we saw happen to President Zelensky?
Look, I go there with.
I like that they don't even like call it anything else. How do you not get drive-by like Zelensky did?
Yeah, it was an ambush. Like, I don't even think we have to screw around with it.
That's a question. Is Vance going to be there? Who is it going to be? Just Trump and him? Is it going to be? How's that public PR going to go when they're both sitting in the same room and the press asks, while Mark Carney's sitting there, Mr. Trump, do you still think that Canada should be the 51st state? What's going to happen? And if Trump says yes, what is Mark going to say?
Well, because that's the other part is he's been saying like this, like he wouldn't have these negotiations or meetings with Carney or with Trump until Trump respects our sovereignty. There was reporting that Trump had brought up the 51st state stuff in their, I think, last phone call before the election. Carney denied that. So that will be like make Carney not look good if Trump still is keeping on that, especially if he does it to his face in the White House. Like the sort of the image of Carney going down to the White House, sitting in the Oval Office, even if we don't see the screaming or whatever, but it's just like Trump being like, you know what, you should be our 51st state or something like that. That's not going to look good.
I mean, it's going to put him in a tough position because after such a strong campaign of we will not forget the betrayal, if he says that to him, I mean, it depends on what he wants to do. If the goal of the meeting is, okay, we won the election, let's get the best deal for Canada we can get. If we get a little smudge on us, it is what it is, but we need to get the best deal we can get. Or we need to stand up for ourselves because the long game is you got to bloody Trump's nose a little bit. I mean, do you get a type of statement where Mark Carney saying like the armed forces of Canada stands at any point to defend its national interest if provoked? Where, I mean, a national leader saying that in response to someone annexing them is totally appropriate to say that, like, if we were invaded, we would fight tooth and nail for every inch of our territory. I mean, what type of rhetoric could we expect from Mark Carney from that being one extreme and the other being like, well, I don't know, I think maybe we should only give half?
I think you'll probably see a lot of what you're seeing here. Like this is his serious mode sort of thing. He's if you see at the end, he's got jokes. He's got some good jokes. So he might try to go with some humor.
I saw him dancing on election night.
Yes, to I think there's either Time to Win, but to Down with Webster. Yeah, that's a whole other story. But yeah, no, I think he'll probably try to play it off with humor, sort of hand wave it away, like always, like you're not, we don't take him seriously. There was one part where he sort of asked this directly, like you said you wouldn't do this until you believe that Trump respected our sovereignty and it was on your terms. So how do you reconcile that with the fact that you're now going with the White House? And he says, I think it was like we have to differentiate between want and reality. So it's sort of that, like, he might sort of just do like, well, it's like, maybe one of the most effective ways is if he just goes, what the hell did you expect him to do? Did you think I was going to be the third ghost on Christmas? Yeah. You thought I was going to, like, in a fucking 2-hour meeting, I was going to give him a come to Jesus moment for Trump. Like, what did you expect? So that might be one of his responses.
I don't know if he sells, because it's one thing to just say we will not be the 51st state. We respect our sovereignty and we will negotiate with the United States in good faith, which might be seen as slightly weak, could have been stronger language, but it's like, okay, whatever. Versus saying, obviously we don't take if he says we don't take it seriously or it's not serious, I think that might actually piss Trump more off than if he was just completely rejected. Because if there's anything Trump doesn't like, it's being treated like a child who doesn't really deserve to be in the room, which I think he might be how he interprets something like that.
But again, that kind of loops back to your point, is like, do the liberals kind of want him to be a little bit aggressive and going off the deep end? And
I would imagine from the way that they responded to him every time he talked about, when he used that language, I noticed, I was watching the faces of the people behind him, and I don't know any of the figures. I'm not that deep into Canadian politics. But every time he talked about the United States in these type of dire, dreadful terms, they seem I could see in their eyes like this almost like tacit acknowledgement of it being true, even if they didn't want to accept it. And so to me, that would indicate that they want that type of strength. They want a Canadian leader to go down there and not just act like America's hat.
Yeah, no, I think he'll be like he could go the sort of like, I'm going to be the adult in the room, and while Trump is sort of like yelling, I'm just going to go down there with facts and sort of just very, like, he may attempt the whole, like, I'm going to
fact check him.
Logic and West Wing. Yeah, he's going to West Wing him in the West
He's
Wing.
going to print out some Snopes articles.
Yeah, have like citations and like, maybe, oh my God, we know how much Trump loves friggin' charts. Big old, like if he goes down with a bunch of big charts with big red lines going like, look, you do this, the big red line goes down. That's bad, Mr. Trump.
You do this, line go up.
Yeah, like look at this different chart. It's green and the line's going up because you said this. And you make lots of money and everyone loves it. And here's now a photo of everyone carrying Trump on their shoulders while they go get ice cream that we made with grok as they like look at like Musk like, right? You made this.
So I'm of the opinion, and I don't know, I might be advocating against my country here, but I've said this for a while. I said this before Trump got inaugurated a second time, and I've said this for the entirety. I think world leaders need to bloody his nose. I think that Trump has to be humbled in a way where a leader clearly makes clear what their national interests are. And I think, for example, Zelensky did the best example of this when it comes to the minerals deal. While the minerals deal is still not perfect, did you see what the original minerals deal was?
It was like all of it.
The original minerals deal dictated that the United States on the investment board that would be made would be the primary decision maker. They would have the majority of the seats. Ukraine would be saddled with a certain amount of debt that had to be repaid, debt they didn't agree to when they accepted the aid, but is now being implied and inflated by Trump's numbers. So they'd be saddled with a decent amount of debt. America would get export priority, and a lot of the rules prioritizing the United States would actually stop Ukraine from joining the European Union, which for obvious reasons, considering back in 2014, it's kind of what this all started on. And is very vital to Ukraine's national interests, that it would be something that the Ukrainian people will just never accept. And on top of that, the United States would be getting ownership of Ukrainian ports, bridges, railways, roads, and infrastructure by which minerals or the trade of goods are done. So the United States would get ownership of Ukrainian ports. Mind you, with the occupation being as it is, we're talking about the United States owning the only Ukrainian ports. That's what we're talking about. So that was the original deal. All of that is gone. And at the time, Trump said, I don't know if you remember this, he announced the deal, he announced these terms, and then immediately, once these terms were put to the Ukrainians, the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, was like, okay, you got an hour to sign it once they gave them the deal. That's originally how it was like, here's a deal, you got an hour to sign it. Ukrainians said, what do you mean? You know, and then it went on for months. They negotiated, they fought, and now none of that's in the deal. Ukraine settled with no debt. The United States is not going to own any of their infrastructure. There is nothing about the Ukrainians having to give up primary board ownership to the United States. Like there's even an exclusive part of the deal that says anything in here that is found to be in contradiction with European Union membership can be altered in the future, meaning that the Ukrainians in the future, while joining the EU, if there's one part of the deal they say, oh, that's a problem with us, it's just gone. I mean, that's a massive shift from what was originally being pushed on the Ukrainians, which Trump says has none of the cards. I would say due to how Canada's pretty vital for the United States economy. It's like right there. We're pretty integrated with it. Definitely if you talk about the northern United States, Canada has more economic cards to play over the United States than the Ukrainians do. So, I mean, I think there is a weight to this bloody the nose strategy. Malcolm Turnbull used to talk about this too, but in different terms than I do. He didn't call it bloody in the nose.
And I mean, like, I'm not the greatest poker shark, but most times,
I would imagine if you had a good hand, it was like, I have the worst hand in the world. Oh my!
Or no, but even if you don't have like a fantastic hand, if the other guy is screaming in your face across the table that you need to fold because you ain't got the cards. He doesn't even know what cards I have. That I think is a tell that maybe you don't actually have the cards and you want me. You're trying to bluff me into folding because, and I mean, if you're with all of this stuff with the negotiations, kind of bears out because they just get pushed a little bit, and it's like, okay, well, we have to bend back on that.
I remember
like
the start of the tariff war. He announced, okay, now we put all these tariffs. Don't retaliate. Don't.
Yes, you better not, because it'll be so much worse. These are sort of like, I mean, it always kind of rolls my eyes when you reduce it to it, but it's like, it's bully tactics. It's like, or like if the mafia didn't have guns, like if you found out that they've been trying to run a protection racket on you, and then the one time they're like, you go, oh, well, I'm not going to pay. And they're like, but you have to. It's like, well, what are you going to do about it? And they're like, no one's ever not paid before. It's like, I don't think he doesn't have an or what. most of the time.
It feels like a PBS special where the first person pushes back, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, there's that one scene, if anyone's old enough to remember Recess, when Gus is getting bullied and he goes to his dad, who's like the military veteran, and he tells him about like the story of Poland, who's this plucky small country that stood up to the big evil Germany. And Gus gets excited and runs off before the dad tells him how it ends up for Poland. But like, then you have like the T.J. Detweiler, which is the metaphor for America, shows up and protects Gus. But like, it's one of those things where even if one of them started sort of like said, or what, and Trump tried to do something because they were small enough to do it to them, I still have some sort of naive hope that the rest of the countries would go, okay, we can't allow this. It's a very slight hope, but it's there.
I mean, like, I could see Trump trying any number of economic levers that would probably be extremely negative. I don't see any military action or physical force action happening. Plus, something like that would have to be approved by Congress. You cannot use the AUMF to strike. You'd have to classify Mark Carney as a terrorist. You know, you'd have to.
You can't bypass congressional oversight to attack white people. That's
I don't know.
Like,
Scott Jennings today on CNN was saying that is the president who decides when we are at war.
Yeah, well, that was kind of the concern. It's like when he was talking about like classifying fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction, and we're like, wait, hold on. We remember that we saw this movie before.
Question: do you think if we just dropped a bag of fentanyl on Hiroshima, they would have appreciated it more?
Well, once they started defining the amount of fentanyl by the maximum number of people who could overdose on it, that's when I started getting concerned, because that's what they're doing. They're like, this, like 100 grams of fentanyl could kill a million people.
Did you know if you took this fentanyl and you injected it into 1 million babies, they would die?
Yeah, and I'm like, there's no other thing where when they do a heist, like when they do, like they're like, oh, we grabbed 64 kilos of cocaine out of this shipping container. The cops don't stand up there and be like, this is how many Wall Street bros this could kill on a Friday night. Like, they don't, that's not the metric. An
endorsement or a condemnation?
No, I mean, that's just the people most at risk. I'm concerned for them. They need to get their, like those test strips. But it's just, yeah, no. And like, I mean, isn't he like commandeering land at the southern border too? Just for like military purposes or whatever.
Let's finish this thing with Mark.
Yeah, sorry.
No worries, no worries. We're both getting distracted, but it's good. We're both yappers.
Mm-hmm.
With the expectation of constructive, difficult but constructive discussions. That's the spirit of the conversations that the president and I had. You know, you go to these meetings well prepared, understanding the objectives of your counterpart, and always acting in the best interest of Canada, and we'll go from there.
In your second call with the president, did Mr. Trump outright say or insinuate at any point that Canada should become the 51st state?
He did not.
All right. We've heard Mr. Trump on April 23rd and his surrogates throughout the final days of the campaign reiterate the idea that they believe Canada should become the 51st state. On the campaign trail, you said on multiple occasions that respect for Canada would be one of the key things.
This would be a lot easier if we didn't have... The thing is, it's not just Trump with the 51st state thing. This is official government state policy now. I just want to throw that out there, that it isn't just Trump saying that he's serious about it, even though if he says he's serious over and over again, you have to take him seriously, definitely if your national interests are a threat. But Caroline Leavitt, his walking, talking puppet, I mean, I don't know if you would go look at Sean Spicer back in the day. If you want to compare Sean Spicer to Caroline Leavitt, if you go back then, when he lied for Donald Trump, you could see he hurt. You could see when he said that Donald Trump had the largest rally ever for his inauguration. He kind of, after that, he like shrinked down and he like sleek, like crawled almost away from the pedestal, because he didn't lie. He knew everybody could see through him. He felt like a clown. He felt like a fool. He wanted to be Dancing with the Stars. He didn't want this, right? And so but when she goes and she's talking to one of these like alt media bros, and they're like, I don't know if you saw this back and forth. They said, I want to do a, this was one of the alt media fucking sycophants. I want to do a truth or troll session with you. And he went through a bunch of things that Trump's truthing about or trolling about. And one of the things he said, annexing Canada and Greenland, truth or troll? And she said, oh, truth. And the alt media commentator, his eyes went wide. He was surprised. He thought he was good. He was in on a joke, only to be informed by the official press secretary who's supposed to clean up Trump's messes. It is not a joke.
Yeah, we had, well, because we had a Katie Simpson, was a CBC reporter in Washington. She was the one who asked the previous question, and everyone got mad at her. She's like, how do you even, it's like, well, yeah, he had gone quiet for a bit. So it's like, okay, did he maybe stop thinking it? And she's like, no. Why would you assume he's changed his mind about making Canada the 51st state? He still believes Canada should become the 51st state. And how dare you even suggest that? It's taken a while for everybody else, but I think most Canadians from like the beginning of January like started to realize, oh shit, he's not joking about this. This is not he's trolling us. He's not making fun of us. Like there is still like you'd hear like some of my colleagues get interviewed like by international media, be like, well, how is Canada responding to these jokes? And they're like, because we're not laughing. It's not, nobody thinks it's a joke, and we don't know why you guys still do. We almost think like there was a bit where it felt like
it's too surreal for Americans, I think, to truly believe that,
and the Brits, the real
you're going to send your son to go die in Ottawa. Like that's not something that Americans, and if it was put that way, Americans would reject it wholeheartedly. That's why they have to keep it in the surreal state where we're all just kind of like talking about it seriously somehow, but also with a smile on our face. Because if we said we need, yes, we will use or we will do this, or this is the goal, or no American wants to send their kid to go die when Trump was the interventionist candidate. Now he's going to go send us to die on the most pointless war imaginable to go get resources that we would trade for anyway with the people that had no issue with us.
Yeah, you can almost understand the reason, I'm not even going to contemplate the idea that the president seriously wants to invade Canada. If you're an American, you're like, I'm not even going to, there's so much other shit to deal with. Like, for Canadians, obviously, it's going to be a lot more of a higher priority. But I understand when Americans like, we have so much shit going on. Like, as bad as that is, that's probably
the richest man in the world currently, like, raw dogging our Constitution. Yeah, the Americans are kind of
and the global economy at the same time.
That's true. I don't know if you saw this, but there was actually a polling release recently that showed that there was an increase of, before Trump got inaugurated, 34% of Americans thought the president had too much power. Now that number is 54%. So there is real concern outside of that, but like, of course it's going to be Canadians' first priority when the largest kid on the entire block of the world starts like looking at you hungrily. You're going to get a little nervous. And I do have to say, while nobody wants to think about this seriously, do you think there are in these dark corner of like Ukrainian, sorry, Freudian slip, in the Canadian defense industry or Canadian defense circles, there's meetings where, okay, we need to prepare war plan A.
Yeah, I'm sure that because I saw some sort of serious people that I would never describe as a shit poster, like academics within the sort of that like foreign policy sort of sphere, like people who are also like, I don't know if they're intelligence, but they're like I don't know, something in that sphere where it's like, I don't know, you go to the Middle East a lot as a professor. That's interesting. But those kind of people are like, maybe should Canada get a nuke? So I'm sure there's probably like, if not already, there's a very skinny, like nervous guy going like trying to explain like nuclear fission to a Canadian like military, like Canada getting a nuke. I'm sure has been discussed way more seriously in those sort of dark, smoky rooms than any of us would like to contemplate at this point. Because it's like, I mean, there's enough controversy about Hassan, so I'm only bringing him up to, I think that's like that joke he makes, it's like the Hassan's, like, the policy or the plan for foreign policy. It's like, if you don't have a nuke, get a nuke. If you do have a nuke, do not give it up. And Canada is in the, we don't have a nuke, and America's looking at us sideways and is like, well, I don't know. Do we need one? We definitely have enough plutonium and fissionable materials and critical materials for that matter, which is another reason why we're kind of nervous that the U.S. is looking at us sideways.
I've thought about this a lot more in reference to Ukraine. It's a lot easier to make a dirty bomb, too, than it is to make a atomic weapon, and you can do it a lot quicker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's like you think that the Canadians can't do, like, why do you think most of the
why was the Geneva
Canada
Convention created, by the way?
Yeah, the Geneva Suggestions, as we call it, in the above the 50th parallel.
I wanted to show you. I'm sorry to divert to this for a second, but this just reminded me about this. Are you familiar with this wizard?
Yes. This is Putin's Merlin.
So for those of you who are listening right now, going about your business, I wanted to read this message from respected Russian philosopher Alexander Dugin. What was the last thing that went through his daughter's mind before she died? Her fucking steering wheel. Anyway, election of ultra-globalist, woke, liberal, US-phobic Mark Carney in Canada is a declaration of war to Trump, so it would be rather easier geopolitical necessity of assuring northern territories multiplied by ideological opposition to Trumpism. Canadians equal Ukrainians.
Is he pro this, or is he get? Because it's a second part. So the first sentence I understand what he's saying there. So it would be rather easier. Geopolitical necessity of assuring northern territories multiplied by ideological opposition to Trumpism. So is he saying that
he is? I can try to break it down for you.
Yeah, because I think I need to understand more about Ukraine to get this.
Dugin's is, I don't know if you read any of his books. I don't know if you're a big, you spend time in the book club.
Sorry, they're all just collecting dust on my pile of books.
You've been meaning to.
Yeah.
But in the foundation of geopolitics is a work he worked on in the 90s. Dugin lays out this dream for Russian Empire that spans from northern China into Finland, into Romania, into Moldova, into parts of the Middle East. It's the empire that he dreamed for Russia basically would double Russia's size as the largest country on the planet. Jesus. It is insane. And one of the ways he wants to pursue that, and he lays it out in vivid detail, is by causing divisions in the Western world and inside the United States. One way he talks about that is by trying to inflame racial tensions in the United States so that you could cause a sort of race war or a civil war in the United States. So therefore that their eye would be taken off the ball, Russia can assert its interests around the globe, and therefore the main Western pillar would break, allowing Russia to reassert itself in its rightful place in reasserting the Ruski Mir or whatever. And so the way I see this is he's basically
think that's a good thing in the first sentence. That was what I was misunderstanding.
Yes.
He thinks it's he's someone he can use to destabilize. He
believes Canada and a conflict between Canada and the United States would be of extreme use to Russia's interests. But even more than that, he's trying to make the argument, in my mind, that just like we were justified through geopolitical necessity and ideological opposition to invade Ukraine and conquer Ukraine, Trump needs to invade Canada out of geopolitical necessity of assuring northern territories. That's what that part means. Multiplied by ideological opposition, anti-Trumpism, anti-MAGAism. That combined with the geopolitical necessity means that Canada has already declared war on Trump. Canadians equal Ukrainians. He's basically trying to say, look, you're just like us. You have to conquer them. That's at least how I see it.
Yeah, no. Now, because now I'm seeing where the commas should go in half of this, and so it would be rather easier geopolitical necessity of assuring northern territories, comma, multiplied by ideological opposition to Trumpism. So so it's that is what he said. That's so goddamn funny. I mean, if I'm gonna put on my Dugan hat, if you believe that. And that is what you want. It would if Canada and the U.S. went into a hot war because the U.S. invaded Canada. Yeah, definitely. I feel like Russia's probably going to benefit from that. Like,
well, it would benefit in so many ways. I mean, not only from the chaos, but NATO as a concept would begin to break down. And it's not just Canada as a potential flashpoint for this, but Greenland as well, which would be, I mean, even though they're an island, it would probably put up less resistance than Canada just due to the fact that they just don't have the military means to defend themselves. And there is actually probably more strategic usefulness in conquering. I mean, I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm just saying that there's probably more strategic usefulness due to global warming and the trade passageways that are opening up in the Arctic for the use of Greenland.
I was going to add that because if Canada and the U.S. are fighting, who's manning NORAD? Who's watching for Russian ships in the Arctic Circle or along the eastern seaboard, for that matter? What's that like whole thing in I think it was The Diplomat, where you have Alison Janney explaining why they had to stop Scottish independence because they have like a nuclear sub-radar base. Like, what's on the whole other side of that? And also, what's it a straight shot to? The canal. Like, it's like if you have Canada and Russia in a hot war, then Putin has like basically free reign of most of the Atlantic Ocean, and then it's straight shot into the Pacific.
I mean, so to me, like I hate to talk about like an invasion. I don't think we're gonna invade Canada for a million other road bumps or stuff like that. But you can see clearly who benefits from these divisions, who benefits and wants these intentions to be inflamed. And I mean, the Canadians equal Ukrainians thing, I mean, it just felt too on the nose.
Yeah, no, like it basically says, it says it right there. Like, if he's Putin's Merlin and he's saying Canadians are Ukrainians and he's talking about Trump, then it's like Trump needs to invade Ukraine the same way we did. Like, we have these are the reasons we invaded, so he has the same reasons he should invade.
It's crazy to think
like,
about.
And I think that's what threw me, is it's in the language of the American right wing. Where, like, when you hear of someone who's like, election of an ultra globalist, woke liberal, US phobic Mark Carney, I'm like, oh, he doesn't like Carney. He thinks Carney is bad that he got elected. No, he thinks that the people who are going to be reading this and who are going to be,
he's trying to bring about what he's talked about in his old book, which, by the way, is taught in Russian military academies. I also want to throw out there that it's not just Dugin that talks in this way. I don't know if you actually listen to Putin. I have to. He talks a lot in this language. The opening speech of the war, he's referencing J.K. Rowling. He's invading, starting the largest war in Europe since World War II, and he's referencing how the woke culture canceled J.K. Rowling just because she asserted women are women. Why is that important in reference to invasion of Ukraine? I've been in Ukraine, okay? I don't present very queer. I am very queer. But the thing is, like, when I talk to people, it's not a very queer-friendly country. I'm just going to throw out that. It's getting better. It's actually getting better, I think, pretty quickly, a lot faster than I expected. Definitely with the Ukrainian government actually openly flirting with civil partnerships. Like, it's not marriage, but when you're talking about this part of the world, sandwiched between Poland and Russia, I mean, that's advancement. But trans people are not accepted in Ukraine. I think I've maybe seen one person who might have been trans from like down the road once. Like, it's not. This is not in relation to the war at all.
Ukraine was not invaded because it was too woke.
It wasn't. So this is meant to translate to Yanks and convince them that actually invading Ukraine is somehow in their interest, and trying to start this dark transnational ideological alliance taking advantage of people's fear of the wokeness or the queers or the blacks or the Jews or whatever it is. It's whoever they fill in the blank. I know all the Ukraine people love Timothy Snyder, but the way Timothy Snyder put it, if you don't like the Ukrainians and you don't and you're a Nazi, then they're Jews. If you don't like the Ukrainians and you're a homophobe, then they're gays. If you don't like the Ukrainians and you're a leftist, then they're Nazis. It's just like this. It's not like a dedication necessarily to these values, even though Putin is very, very conservative. They are speaking in the language that's needed in order to divide our society.
Well, yeah, the dog whistles can come in different notes depending on the breed of canine you're trying to peak the ears off. Like it's you're playing that like those are the dog whistles he knows that people are going to hear and pick up on. So he's playing those notes. Yeah, no, and like.
I'm sorry to throw this at you, but I wanted to get your perspective on it because that post has thrown me ever since I first read it.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I'm glad you explained it because I saw it and it did throw because I was like, what the fuck is he saying? But now I get it. No, but yeah, that's
my goodness. But can I ask you one more Ukraine question? I just want to. I've been asking some of my friends about this because I'm just interested if anybody knows about this. Do you know about the human safari?
Oh, that's the one with like the drones where they're like hunting people, isn't it?
Yeah, and here's
like,
on. I produced a documentary about it recently. We went down there to interview civilians and stuff, and the Russians basically have like an open hunt of basically any babushkas or people walking on the street. And I mean, I've interviewed ambulance crews. They take out fire trucks when they're responding to fires and stuff like that all the time. It just gets very little coverage, and I'm very annoyed at that. But there's another story that broke recently that I think is even wilder, and I don't know why people aren't hearing about this. Did you hear about Russia's use of child suicide bombers?
No.
I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad, but somebody has to bear this bad news because nobody knows about it. So what Russia's been doing, they've been recruiting children on Telegram. It's done in a few different ways. A lot of times they don't tell them that it's a bomb. They just say, hey, take this bag from point A to point B and we'll pay you a tremendous amount of money. And when your country's war torn and, you know, the economy's not in the best spot, you know, when you're offered like 20,000 hryvnias to move a bag like a mile, that's a lot of money. And so 15-year-old kids will pick up the bag, they'll move it down, they won't know that they're sitting down next to a bunch of soldiers and it'll blow up. Another way they've done it, as I know in one instance, there was a 14-year-old girl that they collected the nudes of, and then they told her that if she did not take this bomb and move it to this location, that they were going to release her nudes and ruin her life, etc. And so she moved the bomb under the van. Thankfully, authorities were able to get it, but they've been repeating this tactic over and over and over again. And it's so wild to see so much. Like, Russia is the defender of Christianity and so much propaganda around the war when there's such blatantly just, I don't know how to call this, but like evil behavior. Like, it's like no coverage because we've lost ourselves in the cultural war when it comes to these conflicts now. Like, when we talk about Canada, what are we talking about? We're not talking about trade. We're talking about wokeness. When we're talking about Ukraine, we're talking about wokeness. We're not talking about these types of atrocities. It's fucking crazy, man.
I saw a tweet this morning where someone's like, how did Canada go so wrong? It's like, one day you think you're living in a normal country, and then you wake up the next morning and the recycling plant has a land acknowledgement and a pride flag flying over it. I'm like, I don't know if those are the big issues, actually, if the pride flag and the land acknowledgement. I'm sure you think they're annoying, but like, I don't know. I think it's probably a bunch of other things. It's just so... And that was, I think, maybe one of the saving graces of, I don't know if I'd say saving graces, but one of the silver linings of Trump taking up so much goddamn oxygen during our election is it was almost completely bereft of any sort of anti-woke, pro-woke, culture war discussions. When the conservatives, this is a funny one, when the conservatives put out their election platform, which had all their promises in it, they put out an English and a French one. And in France, in Quebec, they had been promising to go against anti-woke ideologies, sort of borrowing a card from Trump. But they hadn't really been talking about that a lot in English. And then they forgot to put it into their English platform. And when it was only until like a sort of right-wing outlet pointed out, like, why are they not here? That they went and like sort of quietly put, well, okay, yes, we will be going against anti-woke ideology. Don't worry, it's in there. Like it was just sort of an afterthought. Like there was no talk about like bathrooms or.
Are you telling me that Jordan Peterson isn't actually like the top leading political figure in Canada?
No, he's like it's. I don't even think like everyone kept talking about like all those like most of the people watched clips. And like maybe the first 10 minutes of Polyev talking to Jordan Peterson. He's not that important up here. Most people don't think about him that often or know who he is.
The weirdest place I've heard his name, I remember I was maybe 5 miles from the Russian border and I was interviewing Right Sector. Are you familiar with them?
Yes.
They're like the when people talk about the Ukrainian far right, they're usually talking about either them or Azov, but right sector was like the actual street Ukrainian far right with a somewhat viable political movement that was attached to them. And when I say viable, I mean they might be able to get a seat. That's what I mean. And I was interviewing him about his beliefs, and you know, it's first I interviewed him about fighting at Bakhmut, and then I started asking him about like certain like social views, like, hey, you guys, you know, used to bash the gays before that. Are you guys gonna return to that once the war's over? Are you guys gonna, once this is all done, like what is right sectors, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? And when I'm getting into like his politics, he just starts shouting out Jordan Peterson. He just like the bleed over, and the thing is, I can't even put that on you. I know that's us somehow. That's somehow Jordan Peterson getting imported into our political culture, and then we're exporting him over to Ukraine. I hear so much from the conservative movement how they're not globalists, but man, they just keep importing
so
and
many
exporting.
Canadians. And we're not sending them to you. It's just they're not getting any like truck with us, so they go down there, and all of them seem to just skyrocket to the top of the. And it's like, you guys seem to really like them, so we let you have them. But I don't know how much him getting interviewed by it just ended up being like used as an attack ad where Polyev said it's not the Americans' fault, we're stupid, sort of thing, and then they just played that clip over and over and over again. And so it's
what was he? What did he say that
in
reference to? Why would you say? Was that what he was running?
Yeah, he was talking about like this was before the election, but this is sort of like so he was talking about, I think, like how all of the like Trump's criticisms of Canada and how they're taking it, they want to take over us and sort of stuff, and he's like, well, because that was their sort of first thing, was it's like, well, Trump is right. Like all of these things he's saying about Canada is because like the failures of the Liberals. If only there had been a conservative government and we had made Canada strong, then Trump wouldn't be able to make these attack us on these points. If you had a conservative government securing the border and sending people to jail, not giving them bail, or like cracking down on fentanyl, then none of these things would be a problem. And that clearly wasn't an effective message for most Canadians.
I mean, I imagine if it wasn't due to, once he started saying 51st state, was there a point where the conservatives said, "Oh, we need to change tone on"? When was that point? If you could identify, I'm sorry, I've kept you for a while. I'll wrap this up soon, but I'm interested in what that point was.
They sort of maybe the first couple of weeks of March into the first week, but there was like one press conference where Polyev said Trump needs to knock it off, which was one of the first things he said. I don't know when this was. It would have been maybe early March, after like that second tariff deadline came and went. So it was like, and he kind of got, it was like that, like, oh, Trump, you cut it out. Like it could use a little bit stronger language. So he did sort of calibrate. Yeah, and get a little bit stronger, but it wasn't as effective because, like I said, there was some. Yeah, and also the Poilievre's slogan was Canada first, and he kept doing stuff that was kind of Trumpy.
And that was taken from Trump, right? It wasn't. I mean, he didn't say, it's totally not Trumpian in any way.
Yeah, he did. So the plausible deniability they gave it was that I think it's Wilfrid Laurier had originally in a speech said Canada first, Canada last, Canada always. So that they were like, well, it's our full slogan is Canada first, Canada last, Canada always, but we've shortened it to Canada first. So it's completely different from America first. And obviously we're saying Canada first and they're saying America first. So they can't be this. And so it didn't really buy anything. And also here's one where it's the Liberals used it, where he just started getting obsessed with his crowd sizes.
Polyev.
Yes. At press conferences where like he had like a whole back and forth with a journalist going like, you ever seen a crowd size that big? Oh, you're a smart girl. You can probably say how big that crowd is. How big's my crowd? Like it got a little like I can only find an Instagram one, so you'll have to bear with me. But it's like the liberals use this as an attack ad. I'll put this in our chat as well. But it's like it's so. Oh no, that's the.
No, I can.
Like the Google search one.
Oh yeah, this. 1 second.
I mean, the one we had.
And they just put it side by side with Trump, and it's.
Yeah, let me bring this up.
All right.
There we go.
Like our rally yesterday.
Did you see it? The place was packed.
Very big. How many people do you think were there?
I mean, the one we had today, you missed a beauty.
When was the last time you had that in Kingston?
There's a record crowd. They've never had a crowd like that in the history of this place.
That was nice of them in this rain.
It was almost raining.
It was a rough night to drive in.
The rain should have scared them away, but God looked down.
Did John A. MacDonald have crowds like that when he was the MP here?
I don't know who's ever had a bigger crowd than I have, but I had it many times.
He may have had a few crowds around City Hall back in the day.
I even see in the chat in one of the comments, one Trump is enough, which I assume is what the liberals wanted to get across.
Yeah, no, that's exactly the reaction they wanted. And he just like, and there was a second one I'm trying to find where it was like with a female journalist, and he got sort of like pilloried for that because it was just, and it's the first day at smiling class shit is just it's bad, man. And that so it was like there was just stuff like that where he like a lot of their stuff where it's like we're gonna stop foreign aid and defund UNRWA. We're gonna go against anti-woke ideologies that are turning our colleges into anti-Semitic cesspools. It was just that like there was just a little bit too, and the problem was it was just like they weren't borrowing stuff from Trump. It's just that's what like conservative ideologies are gonna have overlaps. So there was for a lot of it, they just sort of couldn't escape it in some cases because it's genuinely what they thought, even on the stuff that wasn't super like Trump being like, I had a big crowd. Yeah. And it's not like, that just because Trump says it, it's automatically malicious and evil. So therefore, the conservatives thinking that same thing is. But it's like just the having, because maybe they did take it from Wilfrid Laurier, but just in Canadians' ears, hearing America first, Canada first, those are the same. It's going to go in their ears, and they're going to hear the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, oh God, I don't want to. This is not exactly the app comparison, but like, you got to understand, it's a Hindu. So when you use this term and this, like, people can only think of it in this context now. People can only.
No, it's Japanese manji. Don't you know? It's not a swastika. It's a Japanese manji.
Japanese manji. But in this
as a
context,
fan of Bleach, who I just really wish the sword didn't friggin' look like that. Because like they should have done what they did in
and
like
if you look in the comic, they call. I saw one of my friends when I was watching this showed me like the comic, and there's like a swastika beam in the comic. The Bleach comic.
Well, like in One Piece, Ace has a swastika tattooed on his back, and they changed it to just a cross, a regular cross in the anime. But it's like. Anytime you're like, why? Like, don't think too much about why there's so many animes that are just rife with early 19th century or 20th century German architecture and like culture and costuming, shall we say?
They do look like those sleek German uniforms in Japanese anime.
Yeah, it's like I wonder maybe at what point in history there was a lot of cultural crossover and people going back and forth. It's almost not worth thinking about. But yeah, no, it. What were we talking about again?
We were talking about Canada first.
Yeah.
So are you saying you're not going to vote conservative again next election?
No, it's a bummer because now I have to move to friggin' Alberta so I can vote for Polyev. I'm furious.
As a warrior of the movement, though, you're loyal. Thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me.
I always like talking to you as my resident Canuck reporter, as give me the breakdown of what's going up there.
Anytime.
Do you want to shout anything out?
No, I mean, give me a follow. We're almost at 1,000 followers on my Twitch. So if you want to go give me a follow on Twitch, Left Hand Stew, same thing on YouTube, Left Hand Stew. Give me a follow, subscribe on YouTube. Give me some videos to like. I got a bunch of stuff from, I think I streamed on maybe Tuesday or whatever. But yeah, no, there's some cool stuff on there. Some good clips. You can go see. I think I broke the story that Carney was a Down with Webster fan on the leadership, because I was the only one from Barrie who knew what the band was. But yeah, give me a follow. That's about it. Awesome. On any socials. I'd appreciate it. But yeah, thank you very much.
Yep. Have a good one, man.
Weekend.
Have a good weekend.
Talk to you later.
Okay. My gosh, what a segment. That went a while. It's good though. I like talking to him. I do like talking to him.